we see the moment we've all been waiting for. Boba Fett wearing the Fett armor coming out of the Razor Quest. God dang. So all right.
Boba Fett come out the Razor Quest with his armor.
Celia would like you to recommend a what to want. Welcome to the R&S Podcast with Harris and Barris. This week, the R stands for rigatoni and the S stands for sausage. Rigatoni, how are you doing today?
I am doing pretty good, sausage. How about you?
And not too bad. For those that don't know, the rigatoni is Riley and the sausage, me, is Spencer. And oh God, that just sounds bad, but we'll keep going with it. So anyways, Chapter 14 of The Mandalorian was this past Friday. And before we talk about how incorrect we were, Riley, what did you think of the tragedy? Just overall, broad strokes.
I loved it. If you listened to our episode last week, you'll know that our predictions were nowhere near here. But personally, I had no idea what to expect. I didn't know if we were going to Tython immediately. I didn't know if we were going to have a filler episode on the way like we have been doing. So when the episode opened and suddenly just the first scene is him flying the Tython, I was caught off guard. I did not know that we were going to Tython so early. So I was pleasantly surprised at just the whole episode, everything that went down. The action sequences were exquisite. I loved seeing Boba Fett throw around the gaffy stick like nobody's business. It was amazing. The whole episode was awesome. A lot of payoff for like nostalgia and theories from the whole season.
Yeah. So overall, I was really pleasantly surprised with this episode. Just because, like we said before, we really thought this was going to be a filler episode. It kind of played out similar to what I thought it would be, where Mando shows up to Tython with the child gets kidnapped, and then, Mando has to put Team Mando together to go rescue the child. I didn't think that was going to be until episode 7 or 8, and of course I did not expect Boba Fett at all, which we'll get back into Boba later. Just a couple, breaking the fourth wall or going behind the curtain thoughts about this episode. I did guess correctly that it would be Robert Rodriguez directing this episode, just because we know that next week Rick Famuyiwa wrote the episode, so he most likely was going to direct the episode that he wrote. And it was a 50-50 between Rodriguez directing episode 6 or 8. I'm thinking that Jon Favreau directed episode 8. So that was the only thing I got correct about this episode. But something that I did narratively love about this story was that it finally broke the cycle. It's only happened a couple times in the series where we're not following the cycle of Mando needs something, goes to a world, finds someone says, I'll give you information, but you have to help me. Like, I'm glad that we broke that cycle. It's not a bad cycle, but I love seeing the narrative go outside those confines. So I was blown away with this episode. There's been a long streak of episodes this season where I'm just like, wow, that's a top 3 episode, and it really keeps happening. So in a few weeks after season 2 ends, Riley and I here are going to rank all of the Mandalorian's episodes from worst to first. It's going to be kind of tough for top 3 with a few of these episodes.
It's going to be very tough. Yeah.
So with that being said, like we did last week, let's kind of go scene by scene and talk about it. So before we talk about the opening scene of the show, Riley, do you watch the recaps going into each episode?
I do. I watched the recaps, yes. And I turned on the episode and I saw the scene of mysterious man walking up towards Fennec, and I'm like, we're going to see Boba Fett this episode. Are you serious?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I saw that. I'm like, no way are we going to see Boba Fett. And then I was like, I wonder how he's going to come in. Suddenly I hear Slave One, and I was like, oh man, Slave One, what a throwback. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I lost my mind because for those that don't know, I go to bed Thursday night around midnight after playing D&D, and then I wake myself up around 4 o'clock to watch the episode. I put in headphones and I watched the episode in bed, and I almost screamed when I saw that shot. I was just like, are we really seeing Boba in this episode?
Because I did not expect Boba at all for the rest of the series.
No,
I thought Boba was shown in episode 1, and then that was it, and we would see him in his own show. I didn't think he would be a pivotal character to the narrative of The Mandalorian.
no, not at all. So then I don't know if there's rumors floating around when Boba Fett takes place. I hope the Boba Fett show takes place after Return of the Jedi, like him getting out of the Sarlacc pit and all that. But no, I thought what they would do with Boba was either we see him at the end of The Marshal, and then that's it for The Mandalorian, or Boba becomes a villain in season 3 or season 4. But the last thing I thought would happen is that he would show back up again this season, let alone, like you said, be an important plot character. So anyways, we have the recap, and then moving into the first scene of the episode is Din is on the Razor Crest flying with Grogu to the planet Tython, and we have, little baby Grogu wants to get the ball from the joystick in the cockpit. So Din is essentially playing force fetch with Grogu, and I think that's like one of the first times we've actually seen Din laugh in the show.
One of the first times we've seen him be emotionally vulnerable, because usually he just hides behind his helmet and does his things.
Mm-hmm.
After watching the episode, I definitely see the purpose as to the opening, because it's like they're so connected, and later it's like, oh well, they're not anymore. So I mean, I love the scene. It was great to see Mando happily exclaim "Dank Ferric" and him being so scared. Grogu thinking he did something wrong, and Mando was like there is such a strong parent to child dynamic now. It's great.
So Razor Crest flies into the atmosphere, and they very quickly, within like 2 or 3 minutes of the episode, make it to the Seeing Stone. And I think the thing I like the most about the Seeing Stone is that people were saying that the symbol on top of the stone looks like a save point from Jedi Fallen Order.
Yeah, it reminded me of a mixture of like Jedi Fallen Order, like the save point, and like the Zepho stones you would use to push around in that game and the puzzles. And also, like, there's a little circle. There was like an indentation circle where Grogu sat, so it looked like a stone version of his ball he was looking at, like, just a few minutes earlier.
Yeah, so people were saying that, well, at least when Grogu wakes up at the end of the episode, he's got full health. and he's got a current save on his hard drive, so at least he'll be fine. So
yeah, he added some new force skills.
Mm-hmm. So Grogu starts doing his thing. Din is obviously a little impatient. He's like he puts Grogu on the stone, and then 5 seconds later, he's just like, "Okay, when's it gonna do the magic thing?
Do the force. Do the force."
He's like, "Okay, come on." So, and then we see the Slave One.
Oh yeah, I don't usually freak out at shows. I'm a bit more of a subdued kind of person when it comes to that. But I was like at my screen, like, what? Slave One? The like when as soon as it flew in, like I said, I didn't expect Boba Fett in this episode, much less to have him fly in on his iconic ship, which we didn't know what happened to it after he was eaten. So we get to see it again.
Yeah, I wonder if the Slave One was kind of doing a Millennium Falcon, like just sitting in a junkyard for a while. Like Boba, gets out of the Sarlacc pit, does whatever with Fennec Shan. He's just like, I gotta go get my ship. I gotta go get my armor. He's just like wandering around Tatooine looking for his ship. Like, does he have car keys where if he hits the car alarm, he'll start going off? He's like, you kidding me? It's on the other side of Mos Eisley.
Oh yeah. No, I watched a video by Star Wars Theory, and he mentioned that either in Legends or in other things, probably just based off of Legends, apparently his ship was like floating around in Tatooine airspace, like above the planet, just waiting for him to return, and then eventually he's able to just, when he breaks out of the Sarlacc pit, somehow he's able to find it. But yeah, apparently that is Slave One, not like Slave One, not Slave 2, 3, or 4, because he's had 4 different versions of the ship, and I think this is like his original one.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I remember that was in Legends where he had multiple different slave ships. But I'm so happy that classic ship survived, and we'll get back to the Slave One. I've got a interesting thought about it later. But so, anyways, we see Slave One. Din is about to turn back to Grogu and say like, "Hey, we gotta watch out, or we gotta get out of here. Someone's here." And then the force field activates around Grogu. Very narratively perfectly timed on multiple occasions in this episode. But Din goes down and he sees the hooded man, which is Boba, standing right there. And he's just like, "You a Jedi or are you a hunter?" And Boba's just like, "I'm just here with my armor. Or I'm just here to get my armor." So, moving on from that, someone then takes a shot at Din. Din finds out. She just has to say, "Hey," and Din's just like, "Fennec Shan, wait, you're alive?" So we find out that, yeah, exactly what we thought was going to happen, at least in that regard, that Boba and Fennec have kind of teamed up, which I'm very excited about that. For what little we saw of Fennec Shan, I'm a huge fan of Ming-Na Wen, the actress that plays her.
Yes, she's doing a great job with her role. Yeah, it's awesome.
She's really good at playing that badass because I watched a few seasons of Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. She was in that. And do you know what one of her most iconic voice acting gigs was?
I do not.
She was the OG voice actress for Mulan.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. So she is just known for being an awesome, powerful character. So, I'm very excited to see those two team up. So, do you think that we're gonna see more of Fennec and Boba together for the Boba Fett show?
I would love to. If it continues on the way that it's looking, I would love to see more of just the team up of Boba and Fennec. But of course, I mean, we're gonna get more in the Mandalorian, so that'll be just awesome by itself. Yeah.
So, moving on with the scene, uh, Din immediately thinks that Boba is talking about Din's own armor. And then Boba points out that no, he's after the armor that he got from Cobb Vanth. Din asks Boba if he is Mandalorian, and Boba only replies with, "I'm just a simple man making my way through the galaxy." And I'm just like, oh, I love that he mentioned that line. I love that line from Attack of the Clones.
Yeah, it's such a. And actually, it's not a direct quote because Jango says, "I'm just a man making my way through the universe," but close.
Yeah, close enough, I guess.
Lost in translation across the many years, but that's okay.
Yeah. So, anyways, Fennec reveals that Boba rescued her, gave her cybernetic stomach because, okay, I wish I had one of those. In all honesty, my stomach's bad enough. But Fennec reveals that she's kind of like pledged her loyalty to Boba for rescuing her and giving her cybernetic belly. So as of this point in the episode, all that we know is that Boba got his armor from his father, Jango. And then we'll get back into that. Because as this conversation is kind of wrapping up, Imperials show up. So I just want to point out how terrifying Boba Fett really is. I am so happy we actually get to see him do stuff in live action.
It was so cool. I very much appreciated being able to see him fight instead of just kind of do what he was doing, just being like a menacing looking dude in the original trilogy. Also, something that was pointed out to me is the transport that they used to fly in the Imperial troops
was First Order.
Yeah, it's the exact same transport they used in First Order in Force Awakens. I'm
glad that I'm not the only one that noticed that because I am 100% a ship nerd when it comes to Star Wars. Oh, yeah, big fan of it. So we get to see Boba running around with the gaffy sticks, just brutally murdering people. Like, the one shot they showed of the Stormtrooper in his armor on the ground, all broken up, looks like that you just put a Stormtrooper action figure in the microwave for 2 minutes. Like, it was just torn apart.
I don't know if we've actually ever seen Stormtrooper armor get shattered the way that we do here with the gaffy stick. It is... Because that stick's crazy. It's got, like, the best, like, blunt force object, because it has a blunt side and, like, a sharp side on that section. And then on the opposite side of the stick, there's also just, like, a spear. So, yeah, it was ridiculous.
In D&D, that would basically be, like, a +5 Morningstar or something crazy broken like that. So yeah, we get to see Boba Fett run around in like this like overgrown Jawa cloak with some gaffy sticks. Like this man's going full Tatooine. Like if he got a kill streak, his kill streak would basically be a bantha horde at this point.
I'm surprised he didn't bring a bantha with him on Slave 1.
Yeah, basically. Oh man, that'd be amazing. So while Boba and Fennec are on their runs, with Fennec having a great action sequence of her avoiding heavy cannon fire and just shoving a boulder down the hill. Meanwhile, Din has tried to run back to the child to try and protect him. He's trying to get the child out of the force field, but he can't. So he's thrown aside just for a couple minutes. So
he gets knocked out.
Yeah. No jetpack, by the way.
No jetpack.
Yeah.
Sans jetpack today.
Yeah. Then Din wakes up, runs back down, saves or goes to help Fennec, which I kind of love the protector role that Din plays sometimes with his Beskar, where he was basically just standing in front of her like kind of like inadvertently T-posing to block some shots.
Oh yeah, he just gets shot all the time because he can.
Yeah, basically, he's a little OP in that regard. But also, I love that he's not OP, even though like he basically can't get shot. But at the same time, like he is not. Don't get me wrong, he's really cool. He's really badass. But he's also not the best fighter that we've seen in Star Wars.
No,
he's awesome. But one thing I love about the character is that he's nowhere near perfect. Like. What we mentioned, I think in last week's episode, if Din Djarin gets a heavy cannon, then the fight is over. Like that's it. But
I saw the heavy cannon. I'm like, so we're bringing out the same cannon we saw in episode 8, and then I just first of all, I love how stormtroopers still have horrible aim.
Yeah,
and it's not even because like they're not supposed to kill the target or anything. They're just bad.
Yeah.
But also, I love how the guy behind the minigun tries to shoot the boulder away with energy blast. Like it's not gonna do anything, bud.
No. And then that commander that was in charge of them was just kind of brutal. He was just like, "No, you idiot, keep going." And then the guy just immediately gets shot. I'm just like,
"Thank you, idiot," dies. Oh,
and it's like, oh. So we see Boba go into the Razor Crest, and everyone's just sitting there like, "Oh, we know what's about to happen."
Well, my first thought, because I didn't know Boba's allegiance or anything like that, my first thought was he saw the door open to the Razor Crest, so he might have attempted to fly it. Not sure if that was to like be nefarious or like kill Din Djarin just to get like the bounty on Baby Yoda on Grogu. But no, he just went to go get his armor, so that was cool.
So then we see the moment we've all been waiting for. Boba Fett comes out of the Razor Crest. I almost said quest. He comes out of the Razor Crest wearing the Fett armor, and he goes to town. Like, I forgot he had knee guns. Why does he? We never see them in like the main movies. The only time we know about them is because of the Star Wars Visual Dictionary, and this is the first time we see them being used. He just has a bunch of blasters on his armor, where I feel like when he was customizing his armor, like maybe he had his own armorer, and she was just like, "So where would you like blasters on your armor?" And he said, "Yes."
Yeah.
So, oh my god, like I'm so happy that they got Robert Rodriguez to direct this episode, because Rodriguez is known for being really good at putting together action sequences, and this episode was mostly about half of it was action sequence, and
it was like one massive action sequence. Yes, it was crazy.
It was phenomenal. This was definitely like some of the best action we've gotten in this show. It's thanks to Boba, thanks to Fennec. Honestly, Din had the least amount of action in this episode. It was
because he was knocked out for half of it.
Yeah, fair. So
yeah. Also, what helped with the action this episode was like the camera work and the angles and the shots they were getting were absolutely gorgeous. That like the entire team did amazing on this episode.
Yeah, and then we get the shot, and I tweeted out a GIF of this earlier of Boba shooting the rocket, hitting one of the transports, and then Boba turns, stares at the camera, and just explosions in the background, because cool guys don't look at explosions.
My favorite part about that little scene is Din was like, "Great shot," and he said, "I was aiming for the other one." Like,
Yeah.
like it was a great shot, but he missed.
Yeah. And at the same time, like if he shot the other one, then he wouldn't have gotten both the transports. But I love it.
Yep.
So then comes the real tragedy of this episode. And I'll explain why it's the real tragedy in a minute. The Razor Crest gets nuked from orbit.
That caught me entirely off guard because shoots the two transports down, and I'm thinking, cool. Well, they can go and continue with Baby Yoda. Wait, and then as if to say, "Oh, you shot my ship down. Well, here's one for you." A massive blast from a ship we didn't know existed just destroys the Razor Crest in one.
That
shot.
was, in all honesty, the real tragedy of this episode. Like, I gasped when that happened because we've been through so much with that ship. Like, imagine the Mandalorian, but the Razor Crest never has mechanical problems. Like, the show would be like 4 episodes a season.
Yes, like the Razor Crest has a lot of mechanical problems, especially this season where it was like destroyed by a spider.
No, we can go back to season 1. In season 1, the ship got stolen by parts from Jawas. He gets into a dogfight, ends up on Tatooine. Then in this season, he got eaten by spiders, dunked in the ocean, and
repaired poorly.
Poorly.
Like half of the season has been the Razor Crest just limping to every single destination. We get one good shot with it where it's like, destroying the TIE fighters in episode 4, and then he flies it, and then he flies it to Tython, and then it dies.
Razor Crest machine goes burr. But I'll say that this was like, the episode is called a tragedy. This was the biggest tragedy from a narrative standpoint. Well, just because as an audience, we could say there's a 99% chance that Din is going to get Grogu back. But there's no fixing their Razor Crest.
Now, and the big thing is, it's been said by the composer of the music that in the Mandalorian theme, where it gets more like fanfare-like, he thinks of that as the Razor Crest theme. And so now part of the title theme of the show is dead.
So,
like, it's such a huge difference now.
So Din has to get a new ship at some point. Maybe he gets like Razor Crest 2, where like it kind of looks like it, kind of doesn't. But I'm just tossing around the idea in my brain. Maybe there's like a 5% chance. But what are the odds that he gets the Slave 1?
If theories are correct and Boba Fett ends up dying here, he will get Slave 1. But I don't think Boba Fett will die here, because if he does, then the Boba Fett show is just like, how did he get to the Mandalorian? And there's no like possible way to create tension because we know he survives to be able to get to dying here.
No, that's a really great point where like we don't think Boba Fett would die, but then again, we also didn't think IG-11 or Queel would die. But I mean, at the same time, Boba Fett's a whole nother level of a character.
Yeah, IG-11 and Queel were created for the Mandalorian. Boba Fett has existed for decades. So
if something should happen to Boba, or maybe at the end of the season, he's just like, I don't need this ship. I've got a better one. I've got the Millennium Falcon. No,
personally, I think it'd be great if it's in this show, or depending on when the Boba Fett show is set, we just get to see him like run into Han Solo again, just see the ship fly by, and Boba's like, wait a minute, like that'd be cool.
I think that would be like the ultimate fan moment of Din and Grogu getting to fly Slave 1. And then they just chase Luke Skywalker around Geonosis with seismic charges that just go boom.
That is my favorite sound.
It really is.
Star Wars are the seismic charges.
It really is. Cool. So, anyways, the Razor Crest gets destroyed, and again, to me, that's like one of the biggest tragedies of this episode, just purely because we know that we're not seeing that ship again. Like,
not only was the Razor Crest destroyed, but his rifle, the iconic rifle with like the tuning fork looking prongs on it, that's also been destroyed. As we saw, the only thing that survived the blast were the Beskar spear and Baby Yoda's, dang it, Grogu's ball.
So 2 things about that. One, I 1,000,000% forgot that that Ambin sniper rifle was originally wielded by Boba Fett in that animated Star Wars original trilogy thing from back in the day. Do you not know that? So,
Oh, no,
so
I
the
didn't know
first
that.
on-screen appearance by Boba Fett before Empire Strikes Back was in some sort of animated thing from Star Wars. I'm completely blanking on what that was.
Was it the Christmas
Maybe it
special?
was, but
Was that animated? I don't
I
remember.
maybe it wasn't. Either way, he was in something animated. That was the first on-screen appearance of Boba Fett, and the gun he was wielding had that two-prong thing at the end. So
Hmm.
uh John Favreau said that Din's sniper rifle was kind of loosely based off of that same blaster that Boba Fett was wielding, which is pretty funny.
That's
But
awesome.
I mean, I'm still so glad that Din got that Beskar spear because that's 100% queuing up the Moff Gideon fight right there.
Oh yeah, he's gonna be able to actually fight against the Darksaber, which is gonna be
So
great.
speaking of the spear and or Moff Gideon, so then we see Moff Gideon on that Arquitens class light cruiser, and he
Hmm.
says, "Launch the Dark Troopers." So we see the Dark Troopers come down. As they begin to fly down, Grogu's force shield or whatever turns off. Narratively convenient, and we see amazing shots of the Dark Troopers. I'm kind of sad that we didn't get to see Din and Boba and Fennec fight the Dark Troopers. I think they're
Yeah.
just saving that uh for the end. Especially
I mean, they look so
they
good, and
do.
I cannot believe that they pulled in something from some game for like what 15, 20
Yeah.
years ago. They were enemies created just for that game, and now these ones look like a cross between like the medium and the large
Yeah.
sized Dark Trooper from the game. They look so good, and there's also a theory that they also could be made of
Yeah.
Beskar, considering Gideon kind of like has a monopoly on it after destroying the Mandalorians in the
Yeah.
Purge.
So
So if they're made of Beskar, that's bad news bears.
in the video game that they were in, I don't know if they were made of Beskar, but they were made of a lightsaber resistant metal. And also,
Hmm.
there was a model of them or something that they were based off of in an episode of Rebels in season 3 called the
Yes,
Winkadu
the
job. Yeah.
yeah, the security droids in that episode were based off of the same thing the Dark Troopers that we just saw
Yeah.
are based off of. So continuity exists here,
So
basically.
Dark Troopers go down, they grab Grogu, they're going back up into the atmosphere. Boba Fett hops in Slave One, goes to pursue. Fennec calls him off. She's just like, they have the child, don't or turn off. And he's like, oh my god, the Empire exists. They're back, they're still here. And I'm just like, yeah, I guess if he's been on Tatooine for about 10 years having no idea what's going on, then yeah, I guess he probably wouldn't know that the Empire's still kind of around.
Something that I would love to see here as well is I would love to see something with like Carson Teva and Trapper Wolf, because the two New Republic
Hmm.
pilots, because we saw Carson talking with Cara Dune saying that the New Republic doesn't really operate out in the Outer Rim. They don't believe what's happening out here. They only really focus on the core world. Well, Tython is a core world. It is even translated from the Orbesh on Mando's screen when he's flying there. It says like Planet Tython region
Hmm.
core. This is a core world that, and Moff Gideon in an obviously Imperial ship shows up in core space. Like they've got to be able to hear that or have sensors about that or something like that. This is the area where they're operating the best in, and they just show up. Like we
Yeah.
can't, that can't happen without like more than just our two New Republic cop friends showing up for this. Like the New Republic has to know this exists, and we have to see something with that. Unless they're trying to really just hammer home the New Republic is really bad at governing.
Yeah, you were texting me some about that earlier. I think they probably noticed it, but probably it was way too late because I mean, in total, I'm guessing that Moff Gideon's ship was only in the or around Tython for like 20 minutes. Just there, launch some troops. Oh, troops go bye bye. All right, fine. Send dark troopers to grab the child and go. So, kind of what we talked about before. Uh, After Grogu is kidnapped, Din goes through the wreckage of the Razor Crest, pulls out the spear, pulls out the little ball, and then we have one of the biggest pieces from this episode. Boba shows the chain, or shows that his chain code has been encoded into armor for a while. So he's proven to Din, he's just like, hey, yeah, this armor's mine 100%. My father owned it before him. And then Din puts it together. He's like, your dad was a foundling. So that's a lot to unpack right there.
Yeah, especially considering how Boba and Jango have been treated in canon for, years now. Um, yeah, so the chain code establishes that Jango and Boba Fett are Mandalorians because of Jango being a foundling. We didn't know why they had the Mandalorian armor because we see Boba Fett as like our first Mandalorian. Jango is introduced as his father, where we assume that he's a Mandalorian, and then everything's thrown into question when the Clone Wars says that he was just a common bounty hunter. How he got that armor is beyond me. So is he a Mandalorian? Is he not? What happened to him? So we just thought that they were maybe used to be Mandalorians, but were cast out of the order or just stole the armor. We had no idea. But it's finally mentioned that Jango Fett is a foundling, and that doesn't even it doesn't even change canon because the person who said it in Clone Wars could have just been from a rival clan who didn't believe in the idea of foundlings, so he still could have thought of Jango Fett as not a Mandalorian because they didn't believe in the idea of foundlings. That also works because that person was directly adverse to the ideas of Death Watch, who grabbed Din Djarin as a foundling, and so he was also against their ideals, which included taking foundlings. So it still works.
Yeah, so kind of going over the history of this debate was that, back when Boba Fett was first introduced, it was just commonly accepted that he was Mandalorian. And then I believe George Lucas was just like, I've kind of always thought of the Fetts as non-Mandalorians. So everyone began to question that. Then we had Prime Minister Almec mentioning in Season 2, Episode 12 of The Clone Wars, The Mandalore plot. Almec was just like, Jango Fett was a common bounty hunter. How he acquired that armor is beyond my knowledge. So I was buying into that the Fetts weren't actually Mandalorians. Jango, just being a skilled warrior, killed a Mandalorian, took the armor. But no, we come to find out that Jango was a foundling. That's very, very huge. Like that kind of solves that debate that's been going on for honestly over 10 years at this point as to whether or not the Fetts were actually Mandalorians. Now, going into this episode, what camp would you say you were in? Did you think the Fetts as Mandalorians or not?
I really didn't. I'm not sure. I wasn't super well read up on the debate, so I wasn't like taking a side or anything. Though if he wasn't a Mandalorian, I still believe that he was at one point, and if he's not a Mandalorian, he was cast out of the order for some reason.
Which one? You talking about Jango?
Yeah, did I say
no?
Boba,
You just said he.
Yes, Jango.
No, you're
sorry.
good.
Yeah, I probably what I believe was either he was always a Mandalorian, and either he still is, which now he's a foundling, or beforehand he could have been cast out. So at some point or another in my brain, he was Mandalorian.
So I think not based off of what Almec said, because from what I could tell from Almec was pretentious. So I, for a while, was just kind of like, oh, Almec probably just doesn't care about the foundlings, or maybe the foundlings weren't a thing yet. Actually, no. The foundlings were, from what we know about Jango Fett. Sorry, yeah. Almec probably didn't recognize them as real Mandalorians. He 100% is that type to believe that. So for years until this episode, I was in the camp that the Fetts were not Mandalorians. I'm 99% sure at this point they weren't born. They're not Mandalorian blood. They walked away a Mandalore is the best way to put it. I was in the camp that they did not walk away a Mandalore. Jango Fett merely just killed a Mandalorian, kept the armor, and then unintentionally handed it down to Boba when he met his untimely death on Geonosis. But now in this episode, it makes me think how much of the Jango Fett's family upbringing did he instill into Boba? Because Boba is, in the comics, in the movies, treated as this guy that's out on his own, or he only does what he wants to do, kind of this badass, just shoot him up, be ruthless, be cruel, as we saw in this episode. But at the same time, he has honor, which is something that we never really saw. And like in this episode, he's like, I'm going to trade you the child for your arm, or for my armor. Oh, I got my armor back, but you don't have Grogu. I'm going to help you track him down. which is very interesting. We've never seen this side of Boba. So all in all, it's very interesting to hear that Jango was a foundling, and it looks like he has taught some of his foundling code, or the Mandalorian code, to Boba. Mm-hmm. So was there anything else you wanted to go over with this scene? Because if not, I was going to jump to Navarro and Cara.
Yeah, Spencer, since you have it pulled up, could you read through the chain code real quick, and I'm going to explain something.
Yeah, so we have a couple things here that I'm reading the Wikipedia page, as I've done with the podcast so far. I go through like scene by scene, reading the headers and recapping it. So it says here, written in Mandoa script, the chain code contains his family lineage, revealing foundling, mentor Jast, Father Fett, and Boba Fett, along with Concord Dawn and a couple other random words in there.
Yeah, so basically the chain code reveals, Boba Fett, son of Jango Fett, though in there it actually says Father Fett. It mentions that Jango's homeworld is Concord Dawn, which, in case you don't remember, is the world that's like half blown up in Rebels. That's a Mandalorian core world, and that is where he was taken. That's where Jango was raised. Jango was raised in the Legends comics by his parents, of course, and the people who brought him in. But that Jast character, the Jast refers to someone named Jaster Muriel. He's a Legends character, and in the comic where he exists, Jaster was another Mandalorian who actually killed Jango's parents and then took Jango on as his own son, not because he wanted to take him on, but as honor. Like, I killed his parents. There is still this kid here. I will raise him as if he were my own. And so that's who Jaster is. That's a character from Legends brought into canon, which is just
so it makes me wonder then with the Boba Fett show. Again, we have no idea what the timeline is. If this is directly after Return of the Jedi, if this is before the Mandalorian, after the Mandalorian. Also makes me wonder if we're going to see some of the Boba upbringing at all. I kind of doubt it, but it'd be cool to see some flashbacks to when Jango was getting trained on Concord Dawn.
Yeah, that would be awesome to be able to actually see Jaster Muriel in person, and also have a live action representation of like Mandalorian culture before Clone Wars and the Mandalorian Civil Wars. Actually, depending on when it's set, we could see the Mandalorian Civil Wars, which, by the way, those occurred before Clone Wars. That was the war that helped split, Death Watch people onto Concordia and more pacifist Mandalorians onto Mandalore.
When we see Satine take over?
Yes, the Mandalorian Civil War ended with Mandalorians who wanted more of a pacifist lifestyle on Mandalore, ruled by Satine, and the ones who wanted more of a warrior lifestyle exiled to Concordia, where Death Watch was founded.
So, moving on from this, we then cut to a scene that I did not expect to see in this episode, and in the moment I was like, oh, that's kind of weird, but now in hindsight I'm just like, oh, this is actually really cool. I'm glad they did this. So we then see Din travel to Navarro with Fennec and Boba. We don't see Fennec and Boba anymore in the episode, but Din shows up on Navarro. Talk to Cara
in Slave 1.
We see Din talk to Cara, who turns out she's now a marshal of the New Republic. Q spinoff show. And
oh no, I didn't even think about that.
Oh yeah. A lot of people are not happy about that, but we're not here to discuss that. So Cara Dune is just like, so what are you doing here? And Din's just like, I need to track down Migs Mayfeld, which I guess we should have seen this coming, because Migs Mayfeld being Bill Burr's character from last season, season 1, episode 6, The Prisoner. Migs Mayfeld, last we known, was in a New Republic prison, and man, we totally should have seen this coming, just because next episode was directed by Rick Famuyiwa, who directed the Prisoner episode.
Oh, we should. Yeah, that makes.
Yeah, we should have seen that coming. So, anyways, Din is just like, I need to spring Migs out, just because I need him to track Moff Gideon's ship. And then we hear that Mayfeld is in prison for an additional 50-year sentence because he was springing a prisoner himself and being an accessory to the death of a New Republic officer, which again is what we saw from last season. Mm-hmm. So Din is just like, hey, hey, Kara, you want to come with? And she's like, I kind of have a job now. And he's just like, they have Grogu. She's like, I'm in.
Well, they have the child because she doesn't know his name's Grogu yet.
Yeah, I guess so. So, at first I was just like, why'd they include the scene? It would have been really cool if, the last we see Din in this episode is when Boba and Fennec are just like, I mean, we haven't completed our end of the bargain. We'll go with you. And then we have the Moff Gideon scene. But no, I was kind of really happy that they included the scene just as kind of like a teaser for what next episode may be. Where like maybe the first half of the next episode is springing Mayfield, and then like the second half is putting together the rest of the team.
Yeah, I mean, also, there were a lot of interesting Easter eggs within the prisoners that scrolled by. I saw that and I'm like, I knew they were gonna hide stuff in there. The biggest things were just they were probably pictures. The pictures shown were probably just crews or like crew members or friends of the show. But all of them were like names that could be translated. Some of them were like interesting races. One of them was a lot of them actually were members of the band that jumped Mando at the beginning of episode 2 when he's leaving.
Oh, really?
There was the race with the robot face. So that person was in the band that jumped him. That race was also someone who yelled at Rey in episode 7. That race is also featured in the list, and other races such as like I don't remember the names of the races at this moment, but other faces we saw in the group of people jumping Mando, they were shown as like prisoners. So that was kind of cool.
So going into the last shot of the episode, we see Grogu in a prison cell using the Force, throwing stormtroopers around. Quite hilarious. Moff Gideon comes in and he's just like, "Oh, you're getting sleepy. Go to sleep." And then they put.
Well, you missed the best part of the whole shot when it begins and Moff Gideon just like overly exaggerated turns over to his shoulder, like he's like, "Huh." He has this dramatic turn towards the camera after the beginning of the shot. I'm like, that seemed excessive.
Oh, of course. I mean, Moff Gideon is, and the scene kind of shows like why Giancarlo Esposito is perfect for Moff Gideon, because he can be evil and menacing, but then he can also put on his creepy, charming personality. He's just like, "Oh, you're falling asleep now. We're gonna handcuff you now." And so, the last big thing we've seen from this episode is Moff Gideon say, "All right, contact Dr. Pershing. Let him know we have the child. We have his donor." And that's...
Yeah. Also, something I noticed was when he holds the Darksaber up to Grogu, there's a subtle, like, reverberation in the audio. It sounds like and kind of seems like Grogu might be pulling the Darksaber towards himself. Because, of course, Grogu only has ever seen lightsabers in training, training sabers. So he might want to attempt to take the saber and fight back against Gideon. That's my theory, because I saw the saber very slightly shaking towards Grogu. I heard it, and that's when Gideon says, no, that you're liable to put an eye out with that. I really thought that Grogu was pulling the saber towards himself.
Wow. I was totally possible. So with that being said, we had a short, action-packed episode that was amazing on so many levels.
I mean, short. It's the shortest episode by like 1 minute according to Disney Plus, but it definitely did not feel like the shortest episode. Almost every single minute of that episode was full of action and story, and it was. It
really didn't seem like the shortest. So. We still have one more big thing to talk about, but we have been talking about the episode for about as long as we were talking about Chapter 13 last week. So last week we talked about, or one of our biggest predictions was we talked about who was going to be the Jedi to show up, meet Grogu. Since our conversation, or the biggest names we talked about was Luke Skywalker, Ezra Bridger, and Cal Kestis. And
or someone from Legends.
Someone from Legends, or even a Jedi.
A new
Jedi. Before moving on from that, not even gonna talk about it. Just gonna throw a couple other wild names into the list that I've seen thrown about this week that I would be pretty happy with. Mace Windu and Quinlan Vos. Those are I'm not gonna say, or we're not gonna talk about it. I'm just gonna say, if this happens, we can say that you heard it here on this podcast. Quinlan.
Well, okay, so you say you don't want to talk about it, but I want to say something really quickly on Mace Windu. I would love to see it, but that is a very controversial theory because one, people would love to see him return, but also people think that if Mace Windu returns, it entirely invalidates the final nail in the coffin for Anakin's turn to the dark side. So I believe both sides. I'm very torn whether I want to see him or I don't want to see him. But regardless, yeah, it is a possibility. It is a theory floating around.
I understand your point about the nail in the coffin, but I would be way happier to see Mace Windu just because Samuel L. Jackson is one of my favorite actors. And then
no, I would love to see him, but story-wise, narrative-wise, it wouldn't be as satisfying to some people.
But what I'm saying, I'm willing to throw narrative logic out the window just to see Samuel L. Jackson. I'm willing to do that. At the same time, Quinlan Vos would be phenomenal to see come get Grogu, especially because such an unconventional Jedi like Vos would be a great match for such an unconventional Padawan like Grogu.
Oh, yeah.
So, anyways, we also, after talking about what Jedi could show up to rescue Grogu, or to start training Grogu, I guess, we also talked about we were like, all right, walk us through like the last shot of the season. Like, are we seeing Thrawn then? Stuff like that. And Riley, both you and I almost like identically talked out like the same scene of seeing like Thrawn on the bridge or the Chimera showing up. So,
yeah.
Moving on from that, another thing that we've kind of been predicting would happen this season is that Team Mando would have to go rescue the child once we found out that Moff Gideon was tracking the Razor Crest, which I guess...
Well, yeah, your prediction of Team Mando teaming up to go, get him back was way more accurate than mine. It just happened a little earlier than we both thought.
Yeah, so I really hope Moff Gideon didn't want that tracker back, because I don't think he's getting it back.
He might have to like.
Unless it was made of Beskar, he ain't getting that tracker back. So, who is on Team Mando? Like, who do you think is going to join Mando? Like, I'm not talking about like anybody swooping in at the last minute to save the day. Like, I'm not talking about any
who joins him to start. Like at the beginning, right?
And, like, because I'm not saying predict Luke Skywalker is going to show up or anything like that, or any on your left from Endgame, anything like that. Just who's Mando calling up next episode?
So obviously we have Mando, we have Boba Fett, and we have Fennec Shan. We might have Cara Dune. I'm not sure if we have the child. They have the child means that Cara will do what she can from her little like TV screen there to help spring him, or if she will join Mando to help spring him. So possibly Cara Dune in my eyes. Obviously the prisoner. Remind me of his name.
Mayfeld.
Again. Thank you. Yeah, Mayfeld. Obviously Mayfeld. Because they're gonna spring him somehow. I'm thinking there might be a droid in there somewhere that they might find along the way. Just to kind of mimic the IG-11 hold that we have now. Besides that, though, I'm not super sure because Ahsoka is on her own kind of like path. I'm not sure if he would return to have Ahsoka help, considering she did not want the child. She did not want to train the child herself. So I don't know how for the idea of saving him to make sure that he can be trained, is like on her radar or along her storyline. Besides that, maybe Bo-Katan might show up as well. Since she was, because actually, okay, Bo-Katan I think will show up because she really wants to try to track down Moff Gideon and get the Darksaber back. This seems to be a good time when Mando's like, "Hey, Bo-Katan, do you want to join me and take the Darksaber back?" And she could be like, "Oh yeah." So and that also opens up for the theory that Bo-Katan might attempt to trade the Darksaber for Grogu. So yeah, I think Bo-Katan will be there as well.
So all right, so here's my list then. Din, Boba, and Fennec are 100% shoo-ins like that. Like they're there. I'm gonna
because Din's got to be there and Boba Fett has to taxi him.
Yeah, basically. So. They better not make Boba just a getaway driver. I swear to God.
the best getaway driver in the galaxy.
On Mustafar, Anakin says R2 stay with the ship. On Moff Gideon's cruiser, Din says Boba stay with the ship. Din then proceeds to get shot in the back of the head. So I'd say 90% chance that Kara's going with Din, because I mean from season 1 she was a fan favorite. Then they shot season 2. Then all the controversy with Gina Carano happened. So until the Gina Carano controversies happened, they knew she's a fan favorite. So she's gonna get some more action. So I think she's there.
Yeah.
I would say slightly less odds, but still probably Grief Karga, who you forgot to mention. Like,
No. I didn't mention him because I don't think he'll show up just because he was not seen being talked to at all unless Kara calls him in. Like, we've already gotten the Mando Grief Kara team. So I think it would be interesting to see Mando and Kara without Grief, because Grief, while Kara's away, still has to run Navarro.
Yeah, I mean that's the argument there. Grief wouldn't go because he has to run Navarro, but at the same time, like, Grief loves that little kid. Like, he's like the happy uncle that gets excited when he sees him. So I would say Grief slightly lower odds, but I still think he's gonna show up. I think until you mentioned that, or I completely forgot that Bo-Katan wants Gideon and the Darksaber. Before that, I was gonna go like 50-50, purely because behind the curtain we know that the actress that played one of the other Night Owls, she on Twitter said that she would not be returning this season. So at this point, I think that character, the other Night Owls, won't show up. I think Bo-Katan will personally come get the Darksaber. So,
like, her determination to get the saber is stronger than even her partners, and she will just ditch them to do what she wants to do, because that seems like the kind of person Bo-Katan is.
I don't think we're gonna see any action from Mayfeld, but I think that he'll at least be like, all right, Gideon's in this sector, go get him, deuces.
He'll do what, like, the Codebreaker did in Last Jedi, except not turn.
Yeah,
hopefully.
Yeah, he'll be like, all right, go there. Actually, he could be turning. Mayfeld doesn't like Din. Mayfeld could totally call Gideon or find a way to contact Gideon and say, hey, Din's on his way. Bye.
He could. That is a possibility, considering that Mando got him in prison in the first place. Though the idea of being released from prison might sweeten the deal a little bit.
It may. Either way, I don't trust Mayfeld, but I think Mayfeld would point, or is going to point Din in the right direction to go get Gideon. So, or actually, I'm really going back and forth on this, because do you remember from the Prisoner episode what the boss said that Mayfeld's background was?
No.
He was an Imperial sharpshooter.
That's right. He was also Imperial.
Oh man, I mean, look,
I forgot about that. He was Imperial.
From a storyteller perspective, like, it makes sense that Mayfeld would point them in the right direction. But at the same time, like, where do his true loyalties lie? So, all right, we're going off on a tangent. But either way, I think Mayfeld just points them in the direction of Gideon's ship. I don't think Mayfeld's joining the mission.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, he could at least point him in the right direction. But, like, we have two people, like, that are polar opposites. We have Cara Dune, who worked for the Resistance, who worked for the Rebellion, came away from it, was a very good soldier on the Rebellion, and has returned to the Republic. We could have Mayfeld as someone who worked for the Empire, was a very good soldier there, kind of came off of it, and returns to the same fight. So he could actually be Kara's mirror image and return and fight under Gideon.
At the same time, we don't know if we're going to see the rest of the Mayfeld gang. I'm just calling them the Mayfeld gang for now.
I'm not sure if he will.
I don't know. They may be in the prison scene, but odds are that they wouldn't join Din on his quest. Anyways, Cobb Vanth, I'll put that as a 50-50. Wait, actually, from a narrative perspective, that'd be very, very interesting. At this point, I don't think Din's going to call Cobb because he's with Boba. Yeah, because that'd be really awkward. Like, Din's just in the corner, like, calling someone, and Boba's just like, hey, who are you calling? He's like, the guy that had your armor. Like,
yeah, no, I don't think we're gonna see Cobb Vanth again. I think that was like a one-off kind of. Cobb Vanth is in canon now.
From the rest of the season, I'd say low odds that Ahsoka is going to be there, but I think that Din will call her anyways and be like, "Hey, do you want to come help get Grogu back?" And she could be like, this is what I would love to see. I don't think it's going to happen, but I have some outside logic to think it could. I think Din could call Ahsoka and she would say, "Nah, I'm kind of busy, but I got a couple friends that may be able to help." She could call Sabine and Rex, just because we have no knowledge of Sabine being in Mando at this point. I would love to to see it, but I don't know if it will. But we know that in season 2 from the agency that Tamira Morrison hired, as his casting agency, we know from his website he plays not one but 2 characters this season, which is
He does play 2 characters this season. It's confirmed.
Yeah, from his agency website saying, check out Tamira Morrison playing 2 secret roles in Mando season 2. So I'm really hoping we're about to see Rex. And
is Rex even alive at this point? How is that confirmed?
He was at the Battle of Endor.
Well, how old is he then, though? This is 5 years after, which could be 10 years for him.
You think Rex would turn down a fight?
I'm not saying he would turn down a fight, but is he alive right now?
I mean, I would think logically, yeah, he's alive.
He's just got to be like extra old, which I guess Tamira Morrison could put on some makeup and look extra old.
Yeah.
But still, would he still be in his clone armor?
Well, at the Battle of Endor, he was not. Did you ever hear about how they?
No, I heard about how like one of the guys there is.
Yeah, he
Rex.
looks like Rex, and then 30 years later, they're like, that guy kind of looks like Rex. He's gonna be Rex now. So yeah, I like to think that. Or I still think that Rex is going to be in this season, which I'm going to lose my mind.
If we see Rex, I will probably actually scream at my screen, which I don't do, like I said.
So I think the Sabine and Rex odds are a little bit low just because we haven't heard them mentioned yet. But at the same time, we have that real world knowledge that Tamira Morrison's playing 2 characters this season. So
yeah.
So
do you think we might see Ezra at all, not being the Jedi that returns, but like being, I guess they're looking for Ezra, so never mind. I thought you said Ezra when you said Rex at first, and so that's why I was asking.
No, but yeah. I think that's all we got for Team Mando, like all the possibilities. So
I am so excited to see where this goes. One last just quick question: do you think they'll do a 2-part finale like they did last time?
That's interesting because I think it really depends on how long springing Mayfield takes. Just I don't know. I think what's gonna happen for me, or my predictions are, Mando puts the team together. Episode 7 ends where like the slave one's flying up to Moff Gideon's ship or something like that. But I would totally love for this to be like a 45 to 50 minute episode where putting the team together only takes like 20 minutes. I would love to get into the action next week, but who knows?
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
So, any last closing thoughts?
Definitely the cutest thing we've seen in this episode was Force Catch and Happy Curses.
Absolutely. So, anyways, thank you all for joining us on this week's episode of the R&S Podcast. If you're interested in coming on here to talk to us, please feel free to contact us. Thank you all for watching again with Rigatoni and Sausage this episode.
Rigatoni and Sausage. If you have any questions or comments or anything you'd like to send to us, we have an email you can email us at randspod@gmail.com. That is RANDS pod @gmail.com. We've also got some social media you can follow us on.
Yeah. So anyways, thank you again for watching, and talk to you all soon.
The grass is always greener on Alderaan.
Sure is. Rest in peace. Bye-bye.
See ya.